mail. I'll see if you got some.
I don't see any of the rest of them on here.
On your iPad, you can't, okay, if you're gonna do Zoom, you have to use Zoom on your iPad.
And he ain't got nothing either.
Okay. Hey, Dennis, is there any way that you can help Tim figure out how to refresh his iPad? Because his agenda, he's got it on his phone, but it won't come up on his iPad.
Yeah, wow.
Refresh.
Yeah, like, he can't get it to come up on his iPad. When he refreshes it, his inbox, it won't come up.
Is it connected to the internet?
Are you connected to the internet? Okay.
I can get what this on that fire.
I need to see what you do.
Okay. I asked you that, I'm sorry.
He's doing pretty good. Yeah, I know.
Ask him, can you my sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah.
Me either, because my hair, they said I had to take it down 3 lanes.
You're gonna be in trouble one day. Woody's breaking the law getting up here too.
Started to connect.
Hey, Bill, if you want to come in here and you just come.
Okay.
Fix this. See what we get? When I put that in, I get these things.
I don't see that, did that help? Still not doing anything? Oh, okay. Can I send the agenda to Marilyn's email?
Just give me 10 cents. Yeah, just keep us 6 foot.
George Long, what's this meeting on this computer? Good.
Mine works fine, fine.
Right.
Let's see, may I take care of you, right? Just stuff them so small and round.
Let me go back.
Do you have a password for it, Marilyn? She said it says to enter the password.
It should be in the link. When you click on the link, it's supposed to automatically enter.
Okay, look at the, hey, look at,
It should be listed on.
there's an email that I sent on Friday. Do you see it? Okay. And it says you have to register, and when you click on that, it gives name, and you have to put your name and your email address in. Nothing went well here either today, so. It's a full
Well, I'll just put you on there as me again, but. Yeah, that's me.
You're Dennis Alvarez. So you're Kim Green.
How come it's showing her as opposed to? It's probably because, I don't know. Everybody else is muted, right?
And I'm mute where now?
For some reason, yours is not wanting to work.
I'll go in the boardroom. You want me to just go in the boardroom?
That might be easier.
Okay. Just fix it up.
We can't go nowhere and buy anything. Sorry.
You want me to get you a snack in the office? I always keep my own snacks. I'll share with you.
Smartboard showing on, that's what's on the screen.
Do what?
Smartboard's what's showing on my screen.
Mine worked like a charm Friday.
Monday too.
Mine worked like a charm Friday.
It's working good now, see?
Of course it did. We weren't in the meeting.
Make a piece of tape to put over.
Oh, you're not seeing
Where's
the
the
other
camera?
ones. You're just-
There's Mr. Green.
There's Ben.
Hello, Mr. Green.
Hello, Mr. Barrier, Ms. Hicks.
There you are. Where's your camera on this? Over on the right.
Hi, I'm here on behalf of Oasis. I'm not sure if I should be here for this part or if I should just sit back and mute myself.
I think you can mute yourself, and then when we get to your part, we'll want you to unmute. Is that okay?
That
I
sounds
think that's how it works.
that-
Sorry, we're having a few
We're having
hiccups.
some tech.
We're having some hiccups.
that's okay. That's our life now. So I'm just gonna.
Friday works fine.
Dennis, Blake and Tim Phillips is waiting on, it says, meeting host will let him in soon. Yeah, Blake and
I told you your dance list.
Philip, is my audio good?
Yeah,
Yes.
you sound good.
Okay.
You look good. You even look good.
Thank you.
I hope I'm far enough away now that I look good.
Do I look good?
I can't see you.
What have you done? You've hid. Mr. Young, you need to put your face. What has he done? Put a piece of tape over it?
Wow, yeah, it's magic.
I see Mr. Vance.
I don't.
Mr. Vance, you need to remove that hat.
It's not connected yet. There he is.
Okay, cap off.
I'm here.
Like your hat, Blake.
You and Jim?
Okay, you're in, right? Like, okay. Hang it up.
All right, and we're back to Tim.
Are we, has Tim?
We might have to get Tim to handle it.
I don't see Ashley.
She's here. We're
I'm
staying, we
just
gotta stay 6 feet
I'm
back.
just observing.
Did Tim Phillips get on? Yeah.
Hey,
Not give you everybody some time.
can I see everybody?
Yeah,
Look,
hello.
There, Tim.
Look
Yeah.
good. Looking good, buddy.
I'm sorry you have to see me.
Me, do y'all, if you see me up close, you'd want to look like I'm 90 years old. I got a gray beard and everything else. Look like I've been over by a train. I'm doing good, coming along good.
Good.
Well, you're doing a lot better.
You look good for the shape you're in. Yeah, you said that right, brother.
What you been through.
Lordy mercy, I wouldn't wish it on nobody.
Ain't that the truth, honey?
Woo. Toughest thing I ever done. You changed your mind yet? Have you changed your mind yet?
Are you talking to me, Tim?
Yes.
Well, I guess not, but I'm thinking, right?
Yeah, you keep thinking.
Okay.
Still time.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I am glad to see you back. I know it's been a hard time.
It has. It's coming along.
Getting a little better every day.
A little better every day. Yeah.
Great. Just hang in there.
I'm gonna try my best.
Yeah.
Okay, guys,
All
we're
right.
streaming on YouTube now.
Hang on
Okay.
just a second, Miss Marcy, let me get right in here. So if you want to call the roll and make sure everybody's on, the commissioners, and then you can call a meeting to order.
All right, we're gonna call the roll and make sure that everybody is on and our technical stuff is fixed. Mr. Woody, are
I'm here.
yours working?
I'm here. Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Aldridge?
Present and accounted for.
All right, Mr. Phillips?
I'm here.
All right, we're glad you're with us. And
Live in Technicolor.
And there's Mr. Blake, he's got his working, and Mr. Barry, you're here with us.
I'm here with you. Social distancing, but I'm here.
And we have Miss Cindy Turpentfield, our clerk is here. And I'm Martha Hicks, chair. And at this time, we will bring our meeting to order. This is May the 6th, 2020. And
April.
April the 6th, 2020. We want to do our prayer, and Dennis, would you lead us in prayer, please?
I'll be happy to do that. Thank you so much for every good gift that comes to us, just for your love and mercy in every situation. Lord, there are days, like the days we're in, where it seems difficult to see that. A lot of things happening around us, a lot of hurt, pain. Lord, we're just grateful that you are faithful through it all, and we know that you are here in the midst of this day. Lord, we pray for wisdom, discernment, guidance, as we seek to be about the affairs of this county for the good of the people that's there. Lord, we just ask that you would guide every decision. May you be honored through it all, and may what we do bring about positive change for the people that we serve. Lord, we just thank you in Christ's name. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. All right, we'll move right along with our meeting. We're on 3.2. A, proclamations and awards. We're not gonna do that.
Madam Chairman of the board, we do not have any proclamations or awards.
Okay. We don't have any public comments, Cindy?
No, ma'am, we do not. We did not have anyone reply.
All right, we don't have any public comments, so 3.2 C, board appointments. Juvenile Crime Convention Council. We have one application, Emily Caps.
Yeah, and that has been reviewed and it is up for your vote, Madam Chairman and board.
I move to appoint.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Whoever.
And we have to vote one by one. Mr. Young, how do you vote? Mr. Aldridge,
Aye.
Mr. Blake,
Aye.
and Mr. Phillips,
Aye.
and Martha Hicks, aye. All right. We'll move right along to 3.22, Avery County Economic Development Committee.
Yes, Madam Chairman, attached are the applicants to be considered for appointment to the Avery County Economic Development Committee. There are 3 vacancies on the committee, and the applications are for Ken Walter, Dave Smith, and Clayton Harpo.
Do I hear a motion to appoint?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to appoint Ken Walker, Dave Smith, and Clayton Harpo. How do you vote, Mr. Young? How do you vote, Mr. Aldridge?
Aye.
And Blake, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So we have 3 board members going back on for the Economic Development Committee. All right. 3.2 C3, review of applications for Avery County Agriculture Advisory Board. We have 2 people that have applied, Jim Phillips and Mr. Mose Brass. So we will review them, and in our next meeting, we will vote on that. All right, 3.2 C4, view of application for Avery County Economic Development Committee. Mr. David Poller has resigned, and they have been an application put in, Mr. Jerry Moody, to finish Mr. Poller's team. And I wanted to read this letter that David wrote to us. He says, Dear Mr. Walker, please accept this letter as formal notification that I am resigning from my position on the Avery County EDC. Thank you for the opportunity to serve on this committee and all the hard work you and the group are doing. I do apologize for my absence and the lack of fulfilling my duties. My business has grown to a point that it consumes a tremendous portion of my time. I do believe this is a committee of excellent cause and intent, and I appreciate and admire what each member does and their sacrifices. I wish you and the committee tremendous success. Please let me know if there is any way I could help in the future. Very best regards, David. All right, we will review that and bring it up in our next meeting. All right, we have 3.2 C5, review of application for the Community Child Protection Team. We have one application. Sydney Harrison has applied, and we'll review that and take it up at the next meeting. And we'll move right along to 3.3A, OASIS presentation on Sexual Assault Awareness Month, Mr. Sydney Harrison.
Hi everyone, my name is Sydney Harrison and I am the Avery Services Coordinator for OASIS. I work primarily out of our Avery County office doing all the coordination for services and making sure survivors in our community are being served. And I'm going to switch it over to Sarah Crouch, who is our Outreach Coordinator, who has all of the facts and everything that we wanted to share with you guys today.
Thank you, Sydney. So hi, everybody. I think I've recognized most of you all, but for those of you who I haven't met, my name is Sarah Crouch. Like she mentioned, I am the outreach coordinator for OASIS. I split my time pretty evenly between Watauga County and Avery County. So my role within the agency is to provide education and outreach and things like that to our communities so that folks know what kind of services we offer and what kind of stuff we work on. So I think first, right now, I really want to mention, OASIS is offering the entire spectrum of our services still during this pandemic. We are working remotely, as you can probably see. This is not how my office usually looks, but we are still offering all of our services. So we have, our 24/7 crisis line still available. Our shelter is still available. We'll still attend some legal proceedings as well. So just want to, put it out there that we're definitely still offering all of our services and we're doing our best to provide them in the same effective and efficient way as we always do. So you've got our phone number and our contact information on there if you ever want to talk more about that. But we're here mostly today to talk about April being Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So April has been recognized as Sexual Assault Awareness Month since 2001. It's nationally recognized. So agencies like OASIS all across the nation, all across the state are right now participating in Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So originally, SAM was created to mourn the lives of people who have been murdered through sexual violence, but also to support survivors and to raise awareness about sexual violence and what it truly is and the effect that it does have on our communities. So statistically speaking, physical sexual violence will affect 1 in 3 women in their lifetime and 1 in 6 men. So it's a really quite a widespread problem. And we know that that's true nationally on a statewide level and then even more locally as well. So I want to talk briefly about some of the things that Oasis likes to do during Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And typically we like to have a lot of community education opportunities. So typically we host community workshops. We're doing things with the newspapers. We're having bows and ribbons up around town. And obviously this year is going to look a little bit different. I think that one thing I have to say that I've loved to see in our communities is how adaptable we all are and how resilient we all are. So we're just making it work. And so we're doing that at Oasis as well with this. So I really appreciate having the opportunity to come speak with you all about this today. One of the biggest things that we like to do with Sexual Assault Awareness Month is actually to break down some of the stigma that's associated with sexual violence. So stigma related to sexual violence is, a belief that somebody who is victimized by sexual violence, maybe that they deserved the violence or that they don't deserve our services. Stigma is really harmful because it causes victims to remain silent, and it allows the violence to continue, to perpetuate, right? So we talk a lot about the cycle of violence, meaning that if somebody experiences violence or a traumatic incident in their life, they're more likely to either perpetrate that form of violence in the future or have that same form of violence happen to them again. So it's a cycle. And that cycle can be broken by education and awareness and speaking out and having that community support that we have at Oasis. And so Sexual Assault Awareness Month is a really great opportunity to debunk some of those stigmas, kind of bring to light some of the truth around sexual violence. And that's really why we do Sexual Assault Awareness Month, why I'm here today. Most of my job in general, actually. And so just to kind of help you all maybe understand the issue closer to home. In 2019, so last calendar year, we served over 50 victims of sexual violence. So maybe 50 victims doesn't sound like a whole lot to you all, but when you consider that we had over 300 contacts with those victims, I think it better illustrates the work that we're doing in our community. So we are working with these survivors way more often than just once, right? So those two numbers kind of indicate that if a survivor needs our services, they're going to continue to get our services until they've kind of processed through that trauma, until they feel like they've healed, right? And so as you can see, I mean, we're meeting with our clients more than 2 times every time we meet with them, if that makes sense. Some of the specific services that Oasis offers around sexual violence is, of course, like I mentioned, our 24/7, 365 crisis lines. So, I mean, when I'm talking about our crisis lines, typically I used to say at 2 a.m. on Christmas Day, a real live human being will answer the phone. And now I guess I'm going to start saying, even in the middle of a global pandemic, we're still going to answer the phone. So 24/7, 365, we mean it. And then medical advocacy. So before all of this kind of started happening, we had really, really positive working relationships with the hospitals in our area. We still have those relationships. And if a victim came to the hospital having experienced a sexual assault, they would call Oasis and say, we've got somebody here, they've experienced sexual assault. And then we would actually, an advocate would go to the hospital and provide services for that person who just experienced the assault. And those services could look like answering questions like, what do I do next? And sometimes it literally looks like sitting in the room with them during their forensic exam, because that can be a really traumatizing experience. So our advocacy looks different for each client that we have, but we do provide that advocacy in the room. In the same way with our judicial systems advocacy, we do go to court with clients. We're not attorneys, we don't offer legal advice, but we provide a safe space for them and occasionally just provide childcare for them while they're in the courtroom so their children don't have to be in the courtroom. Excuse me, my cat's climbing up my leg. And then we also provide things like community advocacy and education. So what I'm doing right now, and then prevention programming. So we're currently teaching courses on healthy relationships and consent to all Watauga County 8th graders. And that's something that we hope to start implementing in Avery County within the next few years. just in the schools in general, so that we can have that really good community connection with, our education system, which is the bedrock of our community in so many ways. So that's a really brief overview of sexual violence on a national scale and then on a more local scale. And that's what OASIS can do to serve our clients and what we do. So please, any questions y'all have for me, I'd be happy to answer. I think Sydney would be as well. So.
Well, we thank you and Sydney for being at, with those ACES and the presentation that you have given to us today. Does any of the commissioners want to make a comment? If not, we'll move right along then to 3.3B, Tax Administrator's Report.
And unfortunately, just to practice social distancing, Mr. Bruce has asked me to give the report, so I will give the report on his behalf. First thing I need to do is go over the monthly tax report. So first, we ask that you approve the collections for the month of March of $576,469.58.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have Mr. Woody Young that made the motion and Mr. Dennis Aldridge seconded. All in favor? We will, Blake,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Woody, and I vote aye.
And Mr. Daniels also put in your packet board that through the month of March, we are now at 96.59% of the collection rate, and that is with those second letters going in. And Mr. Young, when the letters always go in for the second collection round, you get a lot of releases. So with that said, we have releases of $1,771.39.
That's the real reason Bruce is not here.
All right.
Second.
And Blake seconded. All in favor, Dennis,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Bruce also included our revaluation sales for the month of March. You will see that this year there were 48 sales. That's up from 32 last year. Looks like we've dropped a whole 10% on the assessed values, but you'll notice two of those sales are Beach Mountain, 22.80 acres sold for $800,000 and another 10.25 sold for $253,000, and that's what we're calling the Eagle's Nest effect on properties. So any questions about those sales?
I don't see how we missed the value that much.
On any of the five?
On any of them.
Yeah, that's just showing how property adjacent to Eagle's Nest is becoming very valuable.
And that's only 16 sales above what was done last year. You said 32 sales, but that's just 16.
Okay. All right, any questions on the sales? The next thing that Bruce needs to happen is to appoint the Special Board of Equalization and Review. And you have 5 applications in front of you and had last month to review those. So those are Edith D. Traver, Patty Tennille, Mose Braswell, Clay Pat Dale, and Christopher D. Byers.
All right, Mr. Young has moved to appoint. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Phillips seconded. And how do you vote, Mr. Woody Young? Mr. Aldridge,
Aye.
Mr. Tim,
Aye.
and Mr. Blake?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
On the recommendation of our tax administrator, Mr. Daniels, I'd like to ask the board to also consider Edith Dee Traver as the chair and Patty Tennille as the vice chair. I need that in a motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Young and a second by Dennis Aldridge. And how do you vote, Mr. Young? Mr. Aldridge,
Aye.
Mr. Blake,
Aye.
and Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. All right. We'll move right along to 3.3C. We have a resolution in support of the Heritage Park Trail Improvement Project. Would you like to read that, Mr. Phillips?
I can. Want to thank the High Country Council of Governments for their help with this grant that we are seeking to improve the trail at Heritage Park, and also want to thank Mr. Jerry Moody and the Parks and Rec, Mr. Robbie Willis, because this is a joint effort and to try to get a grant for this improvement of our trail. So whereas the trail exists in Heritage Park with the potential of serving hikers and equestrians, and whereas to accommodate expected uses and the handicap, the trail needs to be reconfigured, widened, and resurfaced, which will also increase the sustainability. And whereas the county desires to pursue a recreational trails program grant to make needed improvements, therefore be it resolved by the Avery County Board of Commissioners that the county approves submission of the grant application to the recreational trail program for trail redevelopment, and that the county approves the trail scope of work proposed in the application, and that the county commits to providing cash or in-kind matching funds equal to or greater than 25% of the grant funds requested, and that the county commits to completing the project within 2 years after the grant funds are obligated. Approved and adopted this the 6th day of April, 2020.
All right. Do I hear a motion that we adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Heritage Park. All right. Blake has made the motion. Do I hear a second? Okay. Mr. Young has a question before we move on with the vote.
The way this is read, it looks to me like we're signing a blank check. I'm not in favor of that, because we have no idea if it's 25% of $1,000, or 25% of $100,000.
Correct.
That was my concern as well, as to what do we have a sort of a cap or a feel on the scope of this?
This was originally due on Thursday. They extended that to June the 1st. And we just got that email today. So I will do some investigating and see if we've got our cost estimates ready before we pass the resolution. Is that what that?
Well, if we pass the resolution before the deadline, that doesn't require that we would take that doesn't necessitate that we would have to take the funds should we receive them. Is that correct? That was my understanding.
Right. They needed this resolution in support for the improvement, but like Mr. Aldridge, Mr. Young said, we don't know
How much it's going to be.
how much the cost of the work's going to be.
Right. My understanding was that we could approve this for the sake of the grant application process. And then when that time comes, we could assess it then, but we could go ahead and do the grant application now. Am I incorrect in that assumption?
Miss Michelle, can we have your opinion on that?
I'm not familiar with this grant application, so I'm not sure exactly what it says, but the resolution itself says that the county is, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
The county is committing to funding the project, is what it says, and committing to complete it within 2 years after the funds are obligated. It says the county commits to providing cash to the project.
Okay, I may have
It
missed
doesn't
something.
say that accepting the grant or not is optional.
Madam Chair, I'd like to amend my motion to ask this be tabled until such time as we have more information.
All right. Blake has tabled his motion.
I'd second that.
All right,
Okay.
Tim has seconded that, so Woody, would you agree to that?
Yes, it just looked to me like we signed a blank check, and I'm not in favor of that.
All
I
right,
think we need to know what we're committing to.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay.
all right, Mr. Aldridge, you agree?
Yes, I do.
And I agree. All right,
Yeah, and my understanding was that we can make that determination, that this was just a formality for the sake of the grant. We can make that determination when it came, so I think this would be better to get more information.
all right, and we,
And that should work out because like I said, they moved the deadline to June 1st.
and Mr. Tim, you agree to that? Okay. All right. We'll move on.
It's Dennis.
That's Dennis. Trying to put,
Twilight Zone.
all right. We'll move right along to 3.3D, our grandfather of Mountain Highland Games and gathering of the Scottish Clan presentation.
Yeah, Steve Quillen, which is the president of the Grandfather Mountain Highland Games, was hoping that he could present this to the commissioners. This is just for information. I think Dennis was going to try to show the PowerPoint. Dennis Holland.
Thank you.
Dennis Aldridge, I was not going to ask you, but
Go ahead, Dennis. Come on.
But Grandfather Mountain Highland Games is something every county can be very proud of. It's the largest gathering of Scottish clans and family societies in the world. It's certainly the most famous Highland Games in North America. It was founded in 1956 by McRae Morton and Donald McDonald, held every year at McRae Meadows. We're celebrating our 65th anniversary in July of 2020. If we are lucky enough to host the event this year. One of the most traditional Highland Games on the planet. McRae View is 4,400 feet in elevation, which is slightly higher than the highest mountain in Scotland. Events that are significant with our Grandfather Mountain Highland Games is the Hill, which is the bear, the world-class piping and Highland dance competition, and many other events. Sheep herding, Scottish Cultural Village, and on-site camping. The economic impact of the Grandfather Mountain Highland Games is seasonal employment over 100 people each year. They bring 40,000 people to the games over the 4-day period. Advertise heavily for the games and the high country, especially Avery County, through print, brochures, social media, radio, and television. It's estimated that $3.5 to $4.5 million annually come from visitors per the North Carolina Department of Tourism from the games. Grandfather Mountain Highland Games spends an excess of $400,000 just here in Avery County. Grandfather Mountain Highland Games policy is to direct spending to Avery County first, which we obviously appreciate. In a typical year, they host visitors from at least 25 states, visitors from at least 3 different countries. Direct impact on Avery County is they fund scholarships every year for students of Avery County. 4-year commitments renewable annually, and it can be as much as $100,000 total in obligation. And the direct impact also on Avery County is to maintain a close relationship with Grandfather Mountain Stewardship Foundation and Linville Resorts, share projects with the schools, share in the cost of portable bleachers, relationship with civic groups that provide substantial funding to them is the JCs, the Hunger Coalition, the Linville Fire Department, Cross North Fire Department. Property taxes on the office building alone generates $2,160 annually. Interfaces between Grandfather Mountain, Highland Gaines, and local government. Security is provided by the Avery County Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Kevin Fry is personally on site. They also employ off-duty officers. The North Carolina Highway Patrol Western headquarters are always moved to McRae Meadows, and they utilize the county medical personnel to staff the medical tent at a cost of around $5,200 a year. And they utilize Avery County recycling containers, which Eric is a big part of. They provide funding for the Kiwanis, Cross North Fire, Hunger and Health Coalition, Avery County Baptist Association, Linville Fire Department, and the Rotary Club. And they just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that they were here for Avery County, wanted to be good citizens of the county, good partners with local civic groups. Best and most famous Highland Games in North America, and something we should all be proud of. And I know he regrets that he could not be here today, but I just want to thank you for all they do and the fame they do bring to Avery County.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. We did thank our Highland Games that have been here for many years and what it brings into the county. And we'll move right along to 3.4A1, our county manager's updates.
Well, first update will be on the COVID-19. And I just want to start by thanking the citizens of Avery County first for understanding government and during this rough time. I want to thank the county citizens also for following the governor's order to stay at home. Right now, the only defense that we have is prayer and social distancing to help stop the spread of this virus. Years ago, we came up with a motto, thanks to the Board of Commissioners, that together we are Avery County. And this virus has put that phrase into action and our motto into action. Because together we will step up, together we won't give up, together we are determined, together we are strong, together we will beat COVID-19, together we will not be scared, and together we are Avery County. I'd like to ask all our citizens to go to our website, averycountync.gov, to get the latest information. As of today, we are blessed enough that I can say no cases of coronavirus has been documented in Avery County. Today, there has been 52 tests, 43 which are negative, and 9 are pending. I ask for your prayers for those 9. Remember, the county's top priority is and always will be the safety and security of all our citizens, while providing the best services that we've all come accustomed to. I can't sit here and say that I've done anything. I've got a team around me that's done it all, and I want to just take a moment to thank each and every one. And if I leave someone out, I apologize now, but I want to thank Team Avery, and I want you to thank them with me. Fire and Rescue, our Health Department, the Maintenance Department, the Finance Office, the Senior Center, the Admin Office, the EMS, Recreation, the Veterans Office, the Clerk of Court, the Sheriff's Office, Social Services, the Tax Office, Elections, our school system, the Ag Department, Register of Deeds, 911 and Communications, the Chamber of Commerce, Cannon Hospital, Transportation Department, the Mapping Department, Solid Waste, Emergency Management, RAM, Feeding Every Families, our gated communities, and the Board of Commissioners in which help serve this county. I just want to say thank you. Together, we will beat this virus because together we are Avery County. We set up a call number thanks to the commissioners, and I want to share that number with anyone out there listening. It's 828-373-0091. 373-0091. And all that information is available on the website. And to those businesses out there that are hurting right now, I want to just say, please go to our website, and at the bottom of the page, the Chamber of Commerce has done a beautiful job, and Dennis and IT has done a beautiful job. We have all the resources for small business and business owners to get some help during this difficult time. Together we can be strong, and together we will beat this virus. Next on my updates, even though it's not on my paper, Blake, just want to report that we are moving along with the community room, and we look forward to the day that that is open and that we can all of Avery County together at our community room up at the Cooperative Extension Building. Granco has been awarded the bid. We are waiting on the performance bond, the labor and material payment bond, and the insurance certificate. So as soon as that comes in, they will send all that to the county for approval. April 20th, there is a broadband grant open again through the Appalachian Regional Commission. And again, High Country Council of Governments has helped with that grant, and the paperwork is going smoothly. So we will be attempting to get another matching grant for our broadband needs, because it's really become apparent that we do have some needs in the county with the school system. Kids that can't load their homework and stuff. This has become very important once again, and on our minds all the time. And I just want to remind everyone that the Manor Food Bank will be here at the dive-in at the swimming pool this Thursday, and it starts at 12 o'clock. So that's also on our website. So I just wanted to remind everyone of that. And Madam Chair and Board, I believe that's all I have.
Do you have an update on high school construction?
Our last meeting was outside, practicing social distancing, and everything was going good. And I have not heard from any hiccups from that project.
Mr. Barrier, I'd like to add one thing. As I went home today and run back up here, on the news, they said this week and next week would be our two strenuous weeks for this virus. So let's all work together and try to stay at home and keep our distance, and let's try to get rid of this virus. I really thank everyone that has quarantined themselves in and has tried to help on this, and that's why that we don't have any cases, or is because everybody is working on it. And they've had all these meetings about how to do, wear gloves, keep your hands washed, don't put your hands to your face, but that's hard to do about not putting your hands to your face. You about have to have them handcuffed behind you. But I do want to thank everyone and people that has come to our sites that has been so nice about getting their own trash out and us not transmitting anything, and that's went real well, and I just wanted to add to that. Does any more of our commissioners want to say anything about the virus, or what all that the emergency people have done, or anything?
I would like to say thank you to all of our folks that are working so hard, and I want to implore citizens as I have been doing. If anything you hear starts with "I heard" or "I saw" on X social media, just stop it right there, please. The spread of misinformation throughout this has been so rampant. So I just want to implore our citizens, stop repeating rumors and stop reposting. Don't stop with the "I heards" and so said. Go to a credible source to find it, and it does a lot of damage. It does a lot more harm than it ever will good.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. Tim Phillips, you want to say something?
I just appreciate all the hard work that those guys are putting in, because we do need to realize they're putting themselves on the line every day to help keep us safe. So we need to do our part and keep ourselves safe. So I just thank for the good job they're doing.
Mr. Tim, we want to say to you, none of us has been to see you because we didn't want to bring you no virus. So you'll just have like a singing hand.
I understand completely.
Mr. Aldridge, you have something to add?
Well, I think this is a prime time to remember that the only person that we can control is ourselves. And I think a lot of folks are trying to control everybody else, but the only person that I'm responsible for is me. And if I do what I'm asked to do and try to be a good citizen, a good neighbor, then that seems to work out pretty well for everybody. And I hope that that folks will understand that this is an atypical time. This is not like anything that we've experienced before, and there are no guidelines. They did not cover this in school government training, trust me. And we need to realize that we're all kind of, working off the cuff here and doing the best we can. And as everybody is, be it small business, be it the restaurants that are trying to stay afloat, to all the other businesses, everybody's trying to do the best they can. And I really encourage folks to look for the good, look for the opportunity to commend somebody, look for the opportunity to help somebody. There's, as Dickens said, there was the best of times and it was the worst of times. And I think that's certainly true here. I think here in Avery County, we can be the best and really uphold each other. And it will help us in the short term, and certainly will shorten the duration just in our meetings.
Mr. Young, you have anything that you'd like to comment?
I'd just like to say a special thank you to our EMS, the sheriff's office, and the communications, because they're the ones that are on the very front lines of this. They're doing a wonderful job. I just wanted to know that they do appreciate it.
Here, here.
Mr. Paul Buchanan, he's done a lot of things that shows us.
Nobody's noticed.
Yeah, and Mr. Vance, we appreciate them and all their hard work, and we just appreciate everybody. And we thank the good Lord for taking care of Avery County. All right, we'll move right along to 3.4A2, resolution regarding the finance office.
Mr. Green, do I need to read this and have this approved?
I think so, yes.
There's a resolution in your packet regarding finance officer, whereas the Avery County finance officer has resigned and indicated that his last day of work is the 9th April 2020, and whereas desires to maintain services and desires to name an interim finance officer, and now therefore it be resolved pursuant to the North Carolina General Statute 159-24 and 153A-89 that the Avery County Board of Commissioners meeting at their regular session on the 6th of April 2020 hereby appoints Ashley Cole Ingerson as interim finance officer effective the 10th day of April 2020.
All right. Do I hear a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
All right, Blake has made the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Aldridge is seconded. All right, we'll take a vote. Mr. Young, how do you vote?
Aye.
All right, Mr. Aldridge,
Aye.
Mr. Blake Vance,
Aye.
and Mr. Tim,
Aye.
and I also vote aye. All right, we want to thank Tim for what all he's done for Edgar County, and we hope that he enjoys as being manager for Mitchell County. And we welcome Miss Ashley to life. And we want to thank you for being a part of us. All right.
Bill, do you have you received any interest in the position?
We did. We got an application Friday.
Just one.
I have one so far, official. Thursday is the deadline for the first round. If there needs to be more than one.
All right. We'll move right along to 3.4B. Our finance officer, Mr. Tim Green. It looks like he's got a lot of information for us.
I've got several items on my way out, so we'll go ahead and get started. Item number one is our Department of Social Services has received an additional $1,986 allocation for the Low Income Energy Assistance Program, LEAP. There is no county match. Request the board approve the following budget amendment: a debit of $1,986 to the LEAP expense line item and a corresponding $1,986 to the county welfare revenue line item.
Do I hear a motion that we adopt this $1,986 back to the Energy Assistance Program?
So move.
All right, Mr. Phillips, he moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Banks seconded. Mr. Woody, how is your vote? Mr. Aldridge?
Aye.
And Mr. Banks?
Aye.
And Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
And myself votes aye.
Okay, the second item is our Elections Department budget will need to be adjusted due to the second primary that has been scheduled for June 23rd, or the runoff election. They had asked for that money originally in this year's budget. We had taken it out just because we didn't want to tie up extra budget dollars, not knowing if they would be needed, but as it turned out, it is needed. So we'll need a debit of $5,000 to wages poll workers, $5,000 to the supply line item, and $10,000 out of fund balance appropriated.
All right, do I have a motion that we do this budget amendment for $10,000 for the election?
So move.
All right, Mr. Banks moved
Second.
and Mr. Young seconded. How do you vote, Mr. Aldridge?
Aye.
How do you vote, Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
And Mr. Woody, you made the motion, so you must be gonna vote aye. Okay. And I vote aye.
Okay. Item number 3, our Sheriff's Department has received an insurance loss settlement for the 2015 Ford Taurus. Request the board approve the following budget amendment: $7,504 to the capital outlay auto and $7,504 to insurance reimbursements.
All right, Mr. Young moved to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Aldridge seconded. Mr. Blake, how is your vote?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips? Your vote. Mr. Woody? And Mr. Aldridge?
Aye.
And I vote aye also.
Okay, item number 4, and I will give a little more explanation on this one. Our Avery County Jail medical expense line item needs to be increased about $75,000 due to higher than anticipated medical expenses. What our original budget this budget year was $115,000. In February, we had nearly $31,000, and that took it up almost to the 115 mark. And then in March, we had a little over $48,000 in medical expenses. So it puts us over budget about $44,000 as of today. I thought it'd be wise to go ahead and bump that up to say $75,000. That would give us about a $30,000 cushion between now and the end of June. That may be more than sufficient, and it may not be sufficient at all. So request the board approve a $75,000 budget amendment to medical expenses and coming out of fund balance appropriated.
All right,
You know anything we can do to hold this down?
Well, we do send those bills, or the sheriff's department do send those bills to Prime Health. It's an organization that does what they call scrubbing the bills, and, you know, they hopefully get some knocked off of the bills. But, you know, while they're in our custody, we are responsible for any medical bills they incur. So some years we have bad claims and some years not so much, but this has turned out to be one of the bad claims. And I will say this, probably out of this year's expenses, probably 30 to 40,000 of that was from the 2018-19 fiscal year that we just got billed in February and March. Which if we'd have got billed for them last year, we would have paid them last year. So that's really 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Mr. Green, way that we can do this and get them to do it quarterly instead of hitting us all at one time for it like this?
Well, we're kind of at the mercy of one at the health providers. They have to send the bill out, and then from there we send them to Prime Health, and then they have to do their work on it. So I'm not sure, other than just telling the health providers, i.e. Cannon Hospital or whoever the provider is to try and turn the bill around more quickly.
So
But other than that, we're at their mercy.
this is some expense from last year.
Some of it is from last year, yes.
Do we pay Prime Health?
Yes, we do.
Are they worth what we pay?
I believe they are. I certainly can't tell you as much as Kevin or, well, Tracy's new in his position, but Prime Health come on through the, if I remember correctly, through the North Carolina Sheriff's Association. So they seem to do a good job.
I noticed some of these, of the transactions, the payments to them is that, I mean, I know we've talked about this a little bit before, and this may not be the venue to really delve into this, might be budget time, but do we pay them for their services, or is this what they are what the bills look like after they get through with them, and then it's passed through to the health provider? In other words, is what they are charging us in addition to what?
No, good question. That will be going on to the health providers. There's not additional expense beyond this.
So the Prime Health then is just run through to the billing provider, and we're not paying them. Well, it just looked like we're paying them a tremendous amount if we're paying them for services as opposed to passing it through to the end use provider.
Right, that is being passed through to the providers.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, Tim, you make sure when you go to Mitchell County that you take them this thing right here and show them what they're getting into. If
That's
they
right. Exactly.
out this much to send them somewhere and let somebody else get.
Of course, unfortunately, it's the county's prisoners who has to pay for that. So we're not paying any of the ones that Kevin is housing through the SMCP program. Those counties are paying those bills.
Yeah, I know that, but I've been here 12 years and son, this thing, every time it comes up, it really burns me up. We can't. What if we done that? We was in a hospital or something, that you didn't get your bills for 2 years. I tell them to eat it. But I just think this is ridiculous. They bound to be some way to work this out better than this.
We do. I'll tell you one thing that we do have going on up there. We have a nurse do what they call the nurse visit. So the nurse does come by and provide some service. But, you know, if somebody, for instance, if somebody was to have a heart attack or something, you know, we're just on the hook. That's not a good answer, I know.
There's never a good answer on this. It just kind of is what it is.
Yes, unfortunately.
Reluctantly, because we don't have any choice, I say move to adopt it.
Well, Blake's moved to adopt it. I hear second.
Second.
All right, Tim Phillips seconded.
This, we've talked about this for the 4 years I've been there too. It ain't getting no better, I don't think.
You're waiting for one of those good claim years, huh?
Yeah, I'm waiting for a good claim year.
I'm not a big fan of the idea that our taxpayers have to pay the medical bills for lawbreakers.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you, the first time it was $85,000 and we told him he's gonna have to do a little bit better. And then the next time it come way down, and this is the biggest we've had in a long time, but
Last year we stayed in budget.
I just can't understand why it does.
Last year than we did this year.
How do you feel about it, Mr. Young? Just like I do?
Just exactly. There's got to be something else that could be done. Either bill Medicaid, or if they got Medicaid, or.
We need to talk to our senator about that. Correct?
I know we have to pay it. It's just one of those things that you don't want to pay.
And we looked into insurance and he won't pay for it.
No. We had it to death last year because
Yeah,
the year before.
we went over 200,000 the year before.
Well, I'm telling you, the way things is now, and the way things is gonna be next year, if their bill is, I don't know how the county's gonna pay it. I'll be honest with you, because you're gonna see things turn around that we hate to see, but next year we'll be looking at a big headache. Mr. Aldridge, what do you feel about it?
Publicly or?
Go ahead and voice your opinion. I'll give you the floor.
Just like everyone else. I mean, it's a necessary component of what we do, but the way it's so variable, and I know it's impossible to predict how many's going to be there, what their health problems are going to be. But I do think the solution, like has been mentioned here, is from a legislative standpoint of trying to get some way to have other means of paying for this other than county appropriations.
All right. All right, Blake, you made the motion and Tim accepted it. How do you vote, Mr. Young?
Reluctantly, aye.
All right, Mr. Aldridge,
Aye.
Mr. Banks? How do you-
Another reluctant aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
And I vote no, because I said if it ever come back higher than this, I wouldn't vote for it, and I will not vote this time.
There you go.
All right?
Okay,
Madam Chair, just out of curiosity, Tim, what happens if we don't approve that? I mean, I know we have to pay it. We just have to find it somewhere else or what?
well, if we can't find it somewhere else, we'd be over budget, so there'd be an audit violation. If,
And that might be next year.
right, okay. Item number 5 is request to move money from available for appropriation to repairs and maintenance. 17,200 of this amount will be used to put in an automatic door here in the admin building, which is long overdue. Request the board adopt the following budget amendment, $30,000 to repairs and maintenance coming out of available for appropriations, $30,000.
All right? Hear a motion that we adopt this.
What's other 12.5 for you?
Because I need, unfortunately, I've got a tore up door at the jail right
Yeah,
now.
he has.
And I've got a compressor tore up at the tax office. And unfortunately, we had elevator problems in December. So it's been a big repair year on the equipment. Is that correct, Mr. Green?
It is. It's been an unusual year for repairs.
If you'll notice, when you come in the front door, this back door back here stands open, and so we are gonna use the front door to take care of the back and put the new door on the front, which I think is very much needed. I don't care to say that I brought it up because I saw some people coming in and there just was no way they could get in that door and get in.
Move with approve.
All right, Mr. Young has said he moved to approve. I hear a second.
Second.
All right, Mr. Banks did a second. And so how do you vote, Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
All right, we have, how do you vote, Mr. Aldridge?
Aye.
And Mr. Young? And I also vote aye.
Okay, our last item here, and finally, this has been a long time coming. We can close the pool project fund out. We finally paid the retainage on the project, and we just now, I guess it was last month, the architects signed off on paying the contractor the retainage because there were still, as we all remember, issues with the pool, and they finally took care of them. So the architect approved us paying out the retainage. So there was money left over in the project, and it's primarily the money that was left over is when we received our sales tax refund for the year. There was the contractor sales tax that went back into this project. So most of this money that's remaining in the project is from the sales tax refund. So request the board approve the following budget amendment. A transfer to the general fund, $33,566.42 coming out of the pool project fund, their fund balance, going into the available for appropriations in the general fund with $33,566.42, and the credit being a transfer to the general fund, $33,566.42. And I will say this, that'll give you in the coming months between now and June, nearly $34,000, that if you need more repairs and maintenance money or more jail medical expense, hopefully not on that one, but you'll have that to be able to use.
Where Well, don't tell me. Help to take it off.
Okay, strike that last remark then.
All right, do I hear a motion that we transfer $67,132.84?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Woody Young made the motion and Mr. Aldridge second. Mr. Phillips, what's your? All right. Mr. Vance?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Aldridge
Aye.
and Mr. Young,
Aye.
and I also vote aye.
And I would like to, Madam Chair, to, this being my last board report, I would like to thank each and every one of you, the board, the manager, the clerk, our attorney, all my coworkers. This has been a wonderful place to work. It's been a true honor and a privilege to serve the people of Avery County. I think of Avery County being as much my home as Mitchell County and the people also. And I've been just as tight with Avery County's taxpayer money as I hope to be with Mitchell County's taxpayers' money, just like my own money. As any good finance officer, we're kind of tight. So I've tried to be careful with the money, but I do appreciate the opportunity that y'all have given me very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna wait about a month to call you and ask if you missed me yet.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim.
Anybody else got a comment? If not, we'll move right along to 3.4C, County Attorney's Report. Ms. Ford.
Okay, the only thing that I have that really requires the board attention is the county's resolution in response to the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which is the legislation by Congress to address some continuity for employees at this time. The Department of Labor is still putting out guidance on the act. Everybody thought they had everything nailed down, and then Friday they announced they're putting out some new guidance and they're changing the interpretation of some of the provisions. So what, in a nutshell, this resolution does is it says that the county wants to implement this act into the personnel policy because it is going to affect the personnel policy. It's going to require some additional payments to employees who utilize the time that they're allowed under the act. But it also gives the manager the authority to make any any changes based upon the new guidance that's issued by the Department of Labor. And that would be after consultation with the HR officer and myself. And just for the board's reference, the act really does two things. It adds an extra allowance under the FMLA of whenever employees can take time off under FMLA. And if you look on page 1 of the proposed resolution that I sent to the board, you'll see a heading there for the FMLA, and that sets out what employees are eligible for it. And then the reason that an employee can claim this is if they have a lack of childcare due to the coronavirus. So for example, right now with schools closed, parents being home, that would be a reason, or if you had to take care of a child who was sick. But all that set out, employees are entitled to 12 weeks of leave. This provides that employees can receive 10 weeks paid leave after their first 2 weeks. So that is a new requirement. It is a new burden on employers to provide that. So that is something that the county will have to pay under the terms of that act. Another provision under the act is also, if you'll skip over, I think it's page 3 of the resolution, it provides for emergency paid sick leave for employees And basically what that does is that gives employees 2 weeks paid sick leave if it's due to the coronavirus. And you can see what the requirements are for that. There on the next page, the reasons for the leave. There are 6 different reasons when employees can claim that leave. And that is again paid by the employer. There are some exclusions, and I would like to direct the board's attention to that. Again, on that, you'll see the reasons for the leave 1 through 6. You'll see the heading for duration and the amount of compensation. And then for the exclusions, and the act excludes healthcare providers and emergency responders completely from the act. And it's my understanding that the county wanted to include healthcare providers and emergency responders in the paid leave provisions as long as it's allowed for reasons 4, 5, and 6 would be excluded for healthcare providers and emergency responders. The act excludes them completely. So it was my understanding the county wanted that included, and we're trying to find out some more information and make sure that that will be allowed. The next page does have some leave rules and how to request it, just some basic information there. So again, this would incorporate these changes into the personnel policy. Didn't do a straight change to the personnel policy because the guidance is still coming out from the Department of Labor and things may change, and we didn't want to have to change the personnel policy this much and change it again next month too. So hopefully we'll have all the guidance out and we'll be able just to do one change to the personnel policy and incorporate all the changes with the guidance next month. So what questions do everybody have on that?
Mr. Woody, do you have a comment?
Don't know enough about it to ask a question.
Okay. Mr. Aldridge?
As for the only question I would have was, since this is directly related to the national state of emergency and all the congressional mandates that have been given out, whenever changes are made, as they tend to be in situations like this, will we have to address those on an individual basis as those changes come up, or can there be some kind of unilateral decision-making power given to county, or how, in other words, as things change, how do we have to respond to them as the board of commissioners?
The hope is that all the changes will be issued by the Department of Labor, hopefully this week and maybe next week. And we'll have all the changes that would affect this, the interpretation of the act. And then we can just do one change to the personnel policy, hopefully in May for the county. So we'll have, everybody will know what we're operating off of. That's the hope. It's the government, so you never know. But that's the hope. And the way the resolution is worded, it gives a little bit of leeway if there's a change that comes out between now and the May meeting for the board that the manager can implement in consultation with the HR officer and myself.
I understand. Given the complexity of this with the changes that come out, if we had to address each one of them as they occurred, it would pretty much be a perpetual process. It would seem.
Yeah. I'm hopeful that they'll get all the guidance out in the next week or two, and that will cover all the major changes that we would need as far as the county implementing it.
Thank you.
Mr. Phillips, you got a comment?
That's all we got, Michelle.
That's all we've got.
All right, Mr. Branch, you have a comment?
No, not at all. Just I'll echo what Tim said. That's why we've got experts in this stuff.
All right. Do I hear that we approve the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, FFCRA? Do I hear a motion?
It'd be the resolution regarding it in the personnel policy.
All right, you heard what Michelle said, it would be a resolution.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Mr. Tim, did you second that?
I did.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you right when you,
All right.
all right? Mr. Woody, how did you? Aye. All right, Mr. Aldridge? Aye. Aye. Mr. Banks
Aye.
and Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
And I also say aye. All right. All right, we move right along, and today on 3.7, approval of the minutes. We do not have any. It's just been too busy and hectic to try to get the minutes, so we'll do that in our next meeting. 3.8, agenda consent items. We've had those and been able to look at them. Are they anyone have any concerns on the agenda consent item? If not, we will vote for those by consent. All right. 3.10, announcing of upcoming meetings. Starting in May is when our 2 meetings a month start, right? Correct. Ms.
Yes.
Turkfield? Okay, would be on the first Monday and the third Monday of each month. And we don't really, sometimes we don't have to have the second meeting because there's not anything pushing to have it, but that's what is set up.
So April the 30th is what we have talked about for a budget meeting. And if that's okay with everyone, we'll have to figure out a time. I don't know if that's going to be late in the evening. I guess it's according to what our schedules are again in April, but I will poll the board and ask them what time that they want to do that.
And we might have to have it over.
Yeah, we may have to do remote participation on that also.
And we do apologize for, this is our first meeting for this, and some of our computers fouled up some way right at the end. Now, we tested it Thursday and everything worked out fine.
Mhm.
But today, I guess it's got the coronavirus, probably what's wrong with it. So
Might be more than that.
we'll just have to accept it. But I do want to thank everyone for your patience and for our first meeting. We thank Michelle for all of her guidance and all this paperwork that she's had to do through this. We do thank you, Michelle. And if there's nothing else, do I hear a motion that we adjourn?
Move with your.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Everybody stay well. And Mr. Tim, you smile real big for us, buddy.
Amen, sister. I make a motion we adjourn to.
All right.
Thank you. What are we making this friend?
Stay well, everybody.
Hey, Blake.
Yeah, do the same.
Oh.
Hope we're back in a room together soon.
Yes, sir.
Me too.
Take care, everybody. Tim, thank you for everything you've done for the last 15 years, except going to Malin. Don't thank you for that.
Okay, we'll forget that one. Thank you, Blake.
We appreciate you, man. You meant a lot to the county. And to
Thank
me.
you. Appreciate that.
I'll reiterate that.
Thank you, Tim.
We'll shut this thing off.